about macrobiotics because you've referenced it a few times and it seems like such a central part to triggers healing and to your work today.
Yes, well, macrobiotics is the understanding of life itself. So macro meaning whole and biotic meaning life or living. And it's actually an understanding of what they call the order of the universe or these principles. And then food is one application of those principles. So in macrobiotic theory, they talk about everything from cycles in the stock market, like the yin and the yang principles, like there'll be a boom, or the market will expand and then contract, right? Those are macrobiotic or universal principles of yin and yang. To looking at the future. So my teacher, Michikushi, talked about 2100 when the North Star aligns with the North Pole. And that is a fact, just astrophysics. But symbolically, it represents the end of our last 13,500 year cycle of more struggle and darkness, which we're in that transformational period now. And then after 2100, there'll be 13,500 years of light. And you can see where the planet is and the constellations and how there'll be more light energy on the planet. That is, in macrobiotic theory, everything is included in that understanding. But from a diet point of view, there are very specific recommendations that are easy to follow. So when I started my macrobiotic journey with food and my own healing, I didn't know any theory. I just, made the miso soup and, chewed my food and I did all that kind of stuff. And then all the theories started to become of interest to me when I felt better. So it's a very beautiful philosophy and understanding of the principles of life. And it evolved kind of on similar pathways of traditional Chinese medicine, for example. In TCM, they have the 5 element theory. Mm-hmm. And in macrobiotics, we have the 5 transformations of energy theory. But we work with more the energy. And then in Chinese medicine, it works more with the elements. But it's all ultimately the same principles.
Sure. So for the uninitiated, how would you also compare it to Ayurvedic?
Well, Ayurvedic is has similar foundations, but Ayurvedic is still a little bit more for a warmer climate. So it has very similar principles. And the beautiful thing in macrobiotics is that everything can be understood and included within a macrobiotic understanding of why things work for people in certain ways and why something may not be good for someone. It's a broader understanding.
So then getting back to Trigger, because he's coming through so beautifully during our conversation today, how did you apply those principles to help him heal?
Well, for example, I soaked oats, whole oats, in a miso broth, apple cider vinegar.
Oh.
So the principle of macrobiotics in eating whole grains is to properly prepare or soak the grains so that you can more easily digest the complex carbohydrate.
Okay.
And so people say, oh, don't give your horses oats, because it's too much sugar or it'll make them fiery. But that's an incomplete, I would say, understanding of that food. And of course, in nature, horses would just chew the top, right, of the oats growing, and they wouldn't be given handfuls and, buckets full of oats. So now, because of Trigger and so much that I learned through all my horses, now we soak our oats. If you don't have a high quality miso that has living enzymes or beneficial bacteria, or you don't have high quality apple cider vinegar, then you can soak the oats in water.
Is there a particular brand of miso that you like?
You want to look for miso that's aged over 2 summers and unpasteurized.
Okay.
Because you want it to be miso that has living enzymes and beneficial bacteria. And a more sort of affordable version of that is high quality shoyu sauce. So soy sauce, but true fermented soy liquid is shoyu. And it has the similar properties and beneficial bacteria and enzymes as miso, as true miso. So you don't want to have anything pasteurized because that kills the beneficial enzymes and bacteria. And you don't need a lot. So I have a special oat mixture now that we've made for our horses for over 20 years. And gratefully, I've never really dealt with any chronic cases of laminitis or colic or stocking up. And so we consider nutrition for the horses to be the first priority in terms of their foundation of health. Obviously, we want them to move, and have good pasture and of course, love and support. But we're quite obsessed with making sure that they get their healing oat mixture, and then we can refine it for each horse.
Do you pick your miso up just at the natural food grocery store?
Yes, well, you can. I've been ordering macrobiotic supplies through the world's best creators of them from Japan. Yeah, so I get the miso wholesale in bins. Same with the shoyu sauce. But you can get things on sale. Like I try to get cases of good quality apple cider vinegar on sale. And same with the supplements too. Like you try and get things, especially if we're welcoming a new horse soon. So we'll have 10 horses, 3 Percherons, who are like nine horses. They eat a lot.
9 horses and 18 ponies.
Exactly. And so we want to make sure that they get their healing oat mixture. So we try to get things on sale. If your local store has a 50% off sale and everything is good quality and, that sort of thing, you can get a good multivitamin mineral supplement or something like that. But that's the foundation. I actually have an ebook about how to make that oat mixture, which I have to finish. I just have to finish the conclusion. It's been sitting there for about 2 years. It's about ready to go, but it's never on your massive to-do list. But I will be making that available. But that's one way to make feeding your horse more affordable too, and to dispel the misconception about oats are bad for horses. If you soak the oats in either water and then later on a little bit of sea salt, or you soak it in apple cider vinegar or miso broth or shoyu broth, it's much more digestible. And we only give a little bit, like we give 4 measuring cups. Like if you like a measuring cup that you cook with, that's the serving, but then it expands, right? And then we add a sea kelp, which is also a macrobiotic healing food.
I have to stop you because I'm so curious, and I've been on this crazy kelp journey with my own horse. What is the specific kelp that you find your horses work best with?
We just get the one from the feed store, 50-pound bags, kelp meal.
Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean?
I don't remember which one it is. I'm sure if I walk out to the barn right now, I would see which label. Why?
I'm curious because I've noticed my horses are reacting differently depending on the kelp species I feed them. And also if it's the same species, depending on the location that the kelp was grown, they have also been showing me that there's differences.
Wow. Is that in their nursery or digestion, or they just tell you that? You're telepathic?
Well, I am an animal communicator, but they've also been, I do a lot of free choice with my horses and testing. And just because we've been on this journey now together 4 years, they have certain signs and indicators that when they start to become mineral imbalanced. And so if I make a change in their feed, they'll give me feedback within 24 hours.
That's fantastic. That's amazing that you're so in tune and you're utilizing your gifts with all of that. And certainly when you have a free choice, they will certainly let you know what they want or don't want. Sometimes horses, as we know, like with the salt lick, they may not always want the salt lick or like that particular salt lick.
Another fascinating area for us, because right now I'm feeding 4 different types of salt, free choice.
Wow.
Depending on the temperature, because we're in California, we've had a few days spike up into the 90s, low hundreds. Depending on the temperature, they go for different types of salt.
Wow, this is impressive.
So I can talk salt all day long.
I get my sea salt, and gratefully I can still get it. from one of the best deposits in the world in Japan, SIC salt, through my macrobiotic supplier.
Okay.
And so we get big bags of it shipped in, and our macrobiotic supplier, we order it once or twice a year. And that's the only salt I use. But it sounds like, you have more knowledge of the different types of sea salt and seasons. And this is really amazing.
It is. It's been a really wild journey because for a lot of us, I think we're still in the mindset that it's either like the white salt or it's like a mineral salt or the Himalayan salt. And we don't necessarily consider different salts having different mineral makeup. I have a geology background, and one of the things that I learned in grad school is every mineral deposit, like every clay deposit, every volcano and every eruption of a volcano and every ore deposit has its own unique mineral signature. There are ways that geologists and other scientists are pulling apart, and you can do things like in archaeology of tracing. They're doing this a lot with Roman coins, where you can trace back to where that gold was mined from or that silver was mined from based on the signature mineral makeup and pairing of the coin and pairing that to known deposits. And they're also doing the same in North America with Native American clay pots.
Wow. And
so tracing back that pot to where that clay was sourced from.
Wow, this is phenomenal. This is phenomenal. And, in macrobiotics, we look at food as nutrition plus frequency. So you might say energy, but it's frequency. So what you're describing is the frequency as well is different. And minerals, as we know, are the great conductors of electromagnetic energy in the body. And so we don't need a lot, for example, of minerals or sea vegetables. It's just a small amount, but they connect, they strengthen the nervous system and the brain and support higher consciousness. So a small amount of minerals, and for humans, it's a 1-to-7 ratio of minerals, proteins, fats, complex carbohydrates. Minerals are critical in macrobiotic theory, and what you're describing is the unique properties of minerals depending on the location, and that is also the frequency. There's the mineral itself, the substance, but then there's the frequency. And in macrobiotic theory, we would totally support that. I mean, the ideal life is to live and is to eat within a certain area, right, of where you live, so that you have access to all of these different aspects. We like our sea salt from Japan, but it's a 4-season. So the principle is it's still a 4-season climate zone going to a 4-season climate zone, that sort of thing. We don't want to get overly complicated, but I love what you're doing. I mean, that's so amazing. And your horses must be so energetically and spiritually attuned.
And so my horses come from Spain. So the salts that they gravitate toward are with the Europeans ones, even though we live in California, and they're sea salt pulled from the Pacific Ocean right here off the coast of California.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so amazing what you're doing, because it's all about energy too, right? As we're saying, and to have that refinement will align the frequency of the horses into their high state of being.
Yeah, so please continue with your feed program because I'm fascinated.
So we soak the oats in apple cider vinegar, like a really good quality one that has the mother, in it. And over the years, at first I was hesitant because there was no guidance. I would give a bit and then a bit more and then a bit more. So anywhere, as a horse gets used to it, anywhere from half a cup to a cup of apple cider vinegar with 4 measuring cups of clean whole oats. And then we also, again, soak in a bit of miso broth or shoyu broth. And then we use the sea salt, the high quality sea salt. And there's, as you said, different types of sea salt with different properties. And the SI sea salt, or it used to be the bone-in sea salt, which you can't get anymore, was considered the highest frequency and most digestible for humans anyways. White, moist sea salt was actually preferred for healing in macrobiotics over Himalayan or gray sea salt. But that's a whole other conversation. We're talking horses. So. And then we use the sea kelp quite a bit, like not overdosing, but more than the sea salt. So I'm trying to think, I have to, what my measurements are, maybe a quarter cup, something like that, depending on the horses too, if they're healing or whatever. And then the other secret ingredient that I ship in from Japan, which you can get, but it's harder to get, is umeboshi plum. And that's not as well known. And I started giving it to my horses as part of their digestive aid. And it also has minerals. And these are pickled plums, or fermented, especially fermented plums that are fermented under the moonlight and in a wooden vat. And they're a very powerful medicinal food. They're called the king of alkaline food for humans. Years ago, scientists showed that they were a very powerful antibiotic. And so I have information and a little video about umeboshi plum on my YouTube channel. So I take a pickled plum. They don't taste good. It's a fermented plum, but I take that in a bit of kukicha tea, which is the twig tea that we use in macrobiotics. But I don't give the twig tea to my horses. I mean, maybe I should. I don't know, but I haven't done that yet. And, I can go hours and hours without food when I take the pickled plum and the tea together. So then those are the initial foundation of the horse mixture. And then we'll add flax meal, a good organic flax meal or regular flax meal. And again, you just try to get it in bulk on sale. And then we add other small amount of supplements depending on the horse's needs and the age and that sort of thing. So some may be more specialized, some may be like just a general good multivitamin supplement. So I'm trying to think what else do we put? We put a few drops of oil of oregano in every oat bucket at the very end. I think there's a couple other things that we do, but we don't want to overdo it. You don't want to over supplement your horses either. But this has really been refined over the years, and the healthier your horses are, the happier they are, obviously. And there's fewer vet bills. Sure. I want the horses to be as healthy and happy as possible for them, and to help us heal, but also functionally. In the past, I had years without a vet bill.
Wow.
With senior special needs horses.
Yeah. So when you make your mash, are you using hot water? Are you using tap water? Are you putting it in something like one of those Hay-Grain steamers or a pressure cooker and kind of mixing it up that way? Like, you're really inspiring me with the fermented foods here.
These are great questions. Well, I do have to say, over the years, I think it was a really powerful feed for the horses, because we've had, like I said, never had colic. I mean, Woody left us, and he was 44, so he could have been 54, and he was magnificent. He was full-bodied and muscular. So he had something twisted, right, inside, like some very severe. But he had told me he was leaving in a dream about a year and a half before. He came in a spiral, and he said his mission is done. So he said, I'm leaving soon. It's like, well, in the spirit world, I mean, that could be 100 years from now, right? Like soon, right? So he did have some type of colic thing, but it wasn't like, it's not like he chronically had colic, colic is just anything, right, that related to the whole digestive system. But that was their only time, and it wasn't nothing that could be like we helped him and stayed up all night and had the vet and everything, but it wasn't something that could be treated at the end, right? It was his time to leave. But yeah, there's something about that feed mixture, and the horses gain weight. Horses arrive with their top line deteriorated, and vets will say, oh, you'll never get this old horse's top line back. And within a year or two, they're full bodied and they're filled out on their top line, and they can maintain themselves really well. Of course, you have to have hay and everything else, right? But I'm not spending money on commercial horse feed ever. It's just, you do take some time to prepare it. So as you were saying, what we do is we have little buckets, and we use the buckets from the miso that we get and the umeboshi, those little yellow buckets, and put them all in a row, and then heat up water. And we have a little chicken shed we turned into a heated horse room where I mix all the herbal remedies and have all the horse stuff, all the supplies. And so we heat it up in a pot of water, and I use a portable gas burner. So you can move it anywhere you want. And they're really cheap if you go to the Oriental markets. You don't get the expensive one from the restaurant supply store. You can get them cheap at the Oriental markets. And so we heat the water, we add the miso or the shoyu and let it heat to activate the beneficial enzymes and bacteria. And then we have a certain number of scoops depending on what horse is getting what. The bigger horses get more scoops because they have more oats. And or a horse that's come in a bit underweight, a bit malnourished, and slowly feed them more. And then we let that hot miso broth, right? It's a miso broth,
right?
Get absorbed into the oats. And then we add our apple cider vinegar and let that soak. So if we're in a rush, we let it soak minimal about 2 hours. You can put that foundation mixture together and then go off and do something, clean the stables, clean the water buckets, or come back to the house, do something or whatever. And then come back and add the sea salt and the sea kelp meal and the fox meal and all that kind. Oh, we add diatomaceous earth. That's another thing. We add human grade. So human food quality diatomaceous earth into the feed. And for the stables in the summertime, because we have a lot of flies here in the summer, we use the regular diatomaceous earth, but we don't feed them that because some people say it can scratch, right? It can be harmful for the intestine. But the human grade DE we add at the very end. So it's quite simple, but it does take some time. Like for 10 horses, the whole thing takes an hour. And a lot of it's mixing. It takes about 20-25 minutes to put everything in. And then the best way to mix it is with a fork, really, rather than a big spoon. Because when we add everything, we don't want it to clump, right? We don't want the horse to pick it out, like to pick out something. So it's the mixing. So we try to do a few days in advance when we have time. So we'll make 4 or 5 days in advance if the weather's nice and cool to do that. And then we just pick it up and go. And the horses love it. They just absolutely love it. We have too many special needs horses to do free range. We have Rocky, he's blind and needs more mash now. He's going to be turning 39 or 49. He's told me he's almost 50, but his kill buyer bill of sale is 39. Yeah, we have our horses divided into groups where they're the best companions for each other. So we don't have the herd all in one because Rocky wouldn't do well with the wild Mustang. So we try and tune in, and sometimes the horses will obviously let you know who they want to be with. So we welcomed a new horse here 2 years ago. And he was a prize jumper, and he fell in love with our wild Mustang. So he broke through the electric fences to be with her.
Love knows no bounds.
It was love. They're like a bickering couple that they're really great together, So, and we had the donkey with them, and she's like, I'm out of here, man. Like, I'm not part of the scene. Like, I want to go back with Sarah. So thank you for all of that. Thank you for exploring the world of macrobiotics and nutrition and horses.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like I said earlier, now I'm really curious about feeding fermented foods to my horses. So I'm going to have to go down that rabbit hole next.
Well, I was sharing my horse feed on a Facebook group a couple years ago, and a woman said that she feeds her horses her homemade sauerkraut, which is a much more easily accessible and affordable way to do fermented foods than importing umeboshi plum from Japan. I just happen to have it, right? I happen to have it. We use it all the time and I can get it, right? So at wholesale and everything. But natural sauerkraut, if you make your own fermented cabbage, a sauerkraut, she says she mixes that in to her oats, just like we would mix in the miso or the umeboshi plum. So that's something anyone could afford to do. If you learn how to make your own sauerkraut, I mean, you just have to get your head around it and then add a little bit. They don't need a lot. We don't give them a lot. It's like a tablespoon of umeboshi plum paste, or, 1 soup ladle full of the miso broth.
Good to know. We have this thing that we do at the end of the episodes, the Fast Five. So I'll just ask you 5 questions and reply with whatever comes first to your mind. 1, what was the last thing you Googled?
Tech support.
Awesome. Much needed. 2, what is your favorite trick for busting a limiting block?
Putting mantras around my house that I look at all day long.
Awesome. 3, what did you want to be when you were 12, and for us in the US, is this about the 6th grade?
Caroline Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. Not Laura Ingalls, the mother, Caroline Ingalls. She's one of my archetypes. It's my dream to be a homesteader. But, when you have horses, you love your horses, and then there's more horses and then more horses. It's hard to get that vegetable garden in.
It is, but you're doing fermented food for your horses, so that we're going to say that's close.
Exactly. I love it.
4, who or where is your go-to source for help right now?
Me. I self-reflect.
5, what is the weirdest thing you've witnessed with a horse?
If they eat their poo. I know the horses do that sometimes, but it's like, guys, you have good nutrition. Like, what are we missing? Like, it's like, not often, but I'm always perplexed by that. I don't know what that is. It's, there's all these different opinions in the horse world of what that is, right? I never see it in the summer. It's like maybe in the early winter. So maybe they're missing something. I've witnessed it a few times over the last 25 years.
And so for our listeners out there, if you'd like to learn more about Lidia and her work, you can go online to aponahealing.com. That's APONAHEALING.com. This is SoulBodyHorse. Subscribe to our email list to stay in the know, get exclusive access to our subscriber-only giveaways and behind-the-scenes content. You can subscribe at our site by going online to www.soulbody.horse.